a lot of the tools to make it easy to build these things didn't exist. We had to invent stuff on the fly just to build an app, right? And it cost tons of money and time. So now builders can just ship stuff very quickly on Solana, and they get the high throughput, they get the cheap transactions, they get a stable network. So now we're finally able to do it. We're finally able to realize some of these things, like bringing equities on chain at scale, the NASDAQ at the speed of light. That's a reality now.
All right, we're here live at Accelerate, New York City, and I'm running into the one and only, the guy behind the YouTube of the index funds, the guy behind ABK Labs. Alex, man, how you feeling? How are the vibes? I know it's raining, but man, we're about to put on a show.
Yeah, we ship every day, all day. We don't care about the rain. So we're feeling good. Everything's good. Loving New York, loving seeing all my friends from the ecosystem. And as always, Ellie and the team at Solana, like crushing it, putting on a great conference.
Dude, give me the 30-second intro. Give me the 30-second on who you are and what you do in the space.
I'm an entrepreneur. I used to work at Solana Foundation. I've had multiple companies in this space, been in the space since 2016. And I build useful open source software for people who are building on top blockchains and at what I like to say, like the edge of the future of the internet.
Explain it to me like a 5-year-old.
Oh man, like a 5-year-old.
You're at dinner with grandma. What are you telling grandma what you do?
Wow. We build tools that allow you to leverage the internet. I don't know how to do that for grandma, but I think.
What would you relate it to? Like, what would you tell grandma? Like, if it was in her times, what's the equivalent the best way to tell her?
Well, my grandma has a smartphone.
There you go.
She's almost 100. She turns 100 on the 10th, which is kind of amazing. She knows how to use it. And so I would say to her, there's all these things in your phone that make it easy for people to build the useful tools that you use every day, all these apps and things like that. And in my industry, in crypto, we are building the underlying infrastructure that enables developers to provide you those services so easily. It just makes it easy for them to build those tools. And it actually goes back to the story we were talking about before this interview. In the beginning of the internet, there were these people at MIT's AI lab and at CMU, Carnegie Mellon University, and Stanford, and they were literally the only people on the planet with email. Everybody who had email back then, they knew each other. And at the time, they were just hacking on stuff. And hacking back then wasn't the malicious term that it has now, where you're like breaking into somebody's wallet and stealing your money. Back then, it was literally just like, hey, I need this tool to make the app that I want to make, and I can't make the app without this underlying piece of technology. And so I'm just going to hack it together for myself. They're literally scratching their own itch. And they were doing it for each other. They were just building useful open source software for each other. And that's what I'm doing. I'm building useful open source software. My engineers are building useful open source software for the other people that we like, all of our friends who are building really interesting, new, innovative technologies on top of Solana. We're trying to provide them with the tools that make that easy and accelerate the adoption.
What do you think are the tools right now that are very much needed or that you guys are focusing on? Because you guys currently seeing the market, you're seeing a lot of innovation. We're seeing a lot of really cool now products, and it's funny to say that there's products now, right?
Yeah.
That are actually like being able to touch, play, and work with. What are you thinking right now for tools-wise and what you guys are offering that you guys are, hey, we want to be able to deliver to?
Well, there's a couple of things. One is automation around building on Solana and specifically running Solana infrastructure. So if you're whether an app developer or whether you're Onza building new consensus algorithms for the core of what makes Solana work, it's really hard to spin up a bunch of servers and test those applications, test those changes you're making into consensus. For Onza, they know how to do it, they have the technical skills, but for people outside of that organization, it can be really tough if you're trying to, say, launch a permissioned environment in a highly regulated use case for a big bank or something like that. And so the first tool we built was this thing called SVMKit that automates the operations of Solana. It lets you spin up a single node or an entire network from Genesis block in like 90 seconds. And then from there, there's some really innovative things we can do. One of the tools that we're going to launch later this year is a debugging tool that allows a developer to load up, to run their own Solana network in a controlled environment, a whole network, not just in a single node, on AWS, for example. And they can load up their whole application, all their smart contracts, and then run transactions through it and halt the network in the middle of a transaction and step through their contract and see what's going on. And for people who don't understand like all this technical stuff, the TLDR here is that debugging on Solana is kind of hard. Like there's not really a way to see diagnose the things that are going on in an efficient manner. And the thing that we're working on, that process that I described, enables that debugging process to accelerate really fast, much faster than it is now. So it's just making like developers' lives a lot easier. That's just like an example of something we're doing.
You're basically every dev's favorite person in the Solana ecosystem.
I mean, when I left the Solana Foundation, all I wanted to do was figure out how do I just build useful open source software. And I'm not an engineer, so I can't actually make that. Although now with Codex, I can vibe code a lot. It's actually kind of amazing.
Vibe coding.
I literally have been vibe coding a ton, and it's super addicting. And actually, I've been able to prototype some pretty useful stuff very quickly doing it. But that's another story. But we've been able. We're 13 people now. I'm the only non-engineer on the team, plus like 2 part-time ops and HR people that I count as like one person. So everybody else who works at our company is like super cracked dev, coming from MIT's AI lab, AMD, Akamai Technologies. They're like a backbone of the internet, publicly traded company. The guy from that team used to manage a lab that was 15,000 servers. It's a giant networking company. So yeah, they are every dev's favorite person because they're the ones actually building the stuff that makes things easier.
So tell me now, man, next 6 months, I mean, critical year in crypto, I believe.
Yeah.
We're seeing, government, we're seeing everything now be really more mainstreamed. People are trying to learn more about it. What do you think are the critical parts of the next 6 months for crypto, especially building on Solana?
So high level for crypto, I think it's really critical that all the people doing policy work keep doing that work and keep winning over people on both sides of the aisle, because we need all this great policy changes that are happening to stick and to stay across multiple generations. And I think if you look at the Howey test, for example, that was a law created like 100 years ago. And we're changing that. We're fixing these regulations so that they can apply to crypto as a whole. And I think this isn't just Solana. This is the entire industry. We need to lock that in and we need to get it right, because whatever we lock in, it's going to be there for the next 100 years.
Yep.
It's going to have huge impacts. The other thing that I think for Solana, I think there's 2 things that are really exciting that are coming, and part of it has to do with regulation. One is RWAs and things like actual equities on chain. I think that's going to drive a massive amount of usage of the network, and is what Solana is perfectly used for. The other one,
and we're seeing it happen.
And it's happening. Like, this is the really exciting thing is when I joined the industry in 2016, everybody was talking about this stuff, but the infrastructure didn't exist. Solana didn't exist. And even when Solana, like I joined Solana in early 2021, a lot of the tools to make it easy to build these things, some of this, like some of the stuff that we're building, didn't exist. We had to invent stuff on the fly just to build an app, right? And it costs tons of money and time. So now builders can just ship stuff very quickly on Solana, and they get the high throughput, they get the cheap transactions, they get a stable network. So now we're finally able to do it. We're finally able to realize some of these things, like bringing equities on chain at scale, the NASDAQ at the speed of light. That's a reality now, and that's super exciting.
Yeah, no, I think we're definitely in for a treat for the next 6 months. I think it's a critical year. Look, market is high, the vibes are high.
Yep.
How you feeling about Accelerate this week here in New York City?
I'm feeling great. It's so good to see all my friends. Like I've been in the industry for a long time, and just running all these people that I love and have worked with, have been in the trenches with. Like, we've been through a lot together, and so it's really cool to kind of reconnect. In the context of like what I'm building, it's really exciting because we're getting a lot of traction. The Solana is getting a lot of traction. Everything that I build is meant to try to accelerate that. Another really exciting thing that's happening and being talked about at this conference is AI. The intersection of, on my podcast, The Index Show, I talk to founders, and a lot of them are working on innovative AI projects. And I've been developing this thesis called open intelligence. It's the intersection of open source artificial general intelligence on crypto rails. And I think it's existential for this to exist because right now you've got X, you've got Google, you've got OpenAI. They have these centralized, closed source, really, really good artificial intelligence that's accelerating towards AGI and even ASI, a super intelligence. If we do not have an open source competitor that is permissionless, then the world is at risk. I think it's that existential because every person should have the power of this kind of AI in their pocket, and if they don't, it's a big problem. Like, it's kind of an Orwellian big problem. And what I'm seeing happen on Solana is the coalescing of all these builders working on things like AI agents, and like decentralized LLMs and like all this. If you think about like a factory system to create AGI, these building blocks are really only possible on Solana. And there's a bunch of founders who have the open source ethos that they are carrying the torch, the open source movement, working on that. And I'm super excited about it.
Yeah, I think that's something actually that hasn't probably been highlighted as big or as how you mentioned it, is the assembly line that's needed for AGI to really be what we expect it to be for those that even understand it or believe in it. And, you know, I'm not saying don't believe in it. I'm just saying it takes a long time to get to where we believe AGI will be. And I think, like, what a better time to be involved in the ecosystem in Solana, because I do believe there are some really, really life-changing, health-changing, like finance-changing applications that are going to be able to really power this. And I think, like, it's going to be a matter of time, but also we're probably not even going to see it. That's how.
Oh, it's going to happen like this.
Yeah.
And the thing is that people don't realize it is so close, actually. Like, I don't know if it's 6 months or a year, but it's probably in that time frame where we're going to start seeing some AGI in that's accessible to the public through some of these centralized companies. And I think the only way that we catch up on open intelligence to compete with it is through open source AGI and crypto rails, because you need DePIN, you need token economics to drive the social coordination layer around getting all these builders and getting all the GPUs and all the stuff that you need. There's like decentralized training. Like, there's all these big problems in that fat assembly line that we talked about that need to be solved for, that the only way they accelerate to adoption and actually catch up is through crypto. Like, we've seen how fast technologies can accelerate, and things like DePIN, things like Helium, right? Probably one of the companies I'm like most excited about with a real world use case. The only way that kind of stuff happens in such a short time frame is through token economics, I think. That's my thesis. You know, I could be wrong about it, but Solana is uniquely positioned for it, especially with things like this new thing called the X402 standard that's being built on Solana. I can explain that, but okay, so if you're familiar, you've ever been to a website and you get that 404 error code, something went wrong?
Always.
So that's a part of HTTP. It's a protocol that Tim Berners-Lee invented at the beginning of the internet. So there's another response called 402, and what it says, instead of error, you know, something went wrong, it says payment required. But Tim Berners-Lee, back then, they didn't have blockchains, and they just left the specification for that empty. Yeah. So for the 404 code, there's a standard way that developers know what data is going to come back to them in that 404 response and how their app should react to it. So Coinbase recently built this thing called x402.org where they made the specification, and it's open source, but it only works on Base today. So there's a group of builders working together on Solana to actually implement this on Solana open source. And the really big innovation, and listen closely because this is actually pretty important.
This is the alpha.
Yeah, this is the alpha. When you can send money to pay for things online via HTTP, if you're an API provider, you don't need a key or an account or anything. You can just send money to a service and get the service back. And so for AI agents, if they want to buy your plane ticket, if they want to make a trade on a DEX or something like that, they can just literally send an API. Hey, I want to do this thing. I want to buy a meme coin. And it'll just buy the meme coin because they'll just send money with that, and they'll get the response back. So this 402 technology is like a payment gateway that's gonna live on Solana, and Solana is one of the only blockchain that I know of
a little bit
that is that's capable of sustaining the kind of throughput here. Because if we have 5.5 billion people on the planet, there's gonna be 50 billion of these AI agents, and they're gonna be like the volume of transactions that's gonna come from this in a very short period of time. I'm talking like 6 months to a year. This is the next huge thing that's gonna come to Solana, I think.
It's gonna be faster than Blinks.
Yes. It's going to be faster than blinks.
It's gonna be
literally
It's gonna be faster than
because blinking is not the speed of light. Okay, this is literally the lowest friction way to pay for something online is by a 402 response payment.
Look, man, I think you've given us a masterclass here. I love the alpha. I love the sharing of where we are. New York City, Accelerate, it's becoming really a crypto hub, man. New York City is really vibing. They're vibing, right?
Yeah, 100%.
And what are you most excited about this week to be here? Is there an event? Is there something that you're looking to really be able to explore within the ecosystem? See what builders are building, of course. Products are really now here. Anything on the calendar?
Yeah, I mean, I'm fully booked every day pretty much. I would say that people building AI agents is probably the most exciting thing. I think on-chain AI to AI payments and AI payments to API providers for like getting some certain jobs done, like I don't know, everything from buying toilet paper on Amazon to, you know, doing automated copy trading.
Uber to JFK.
Yeah, like literally, like you'll text your agent like, hey, I need to get from here to here, and an Uber will just show up.
I mean, your agent. I mean, you will just book on your calendar when you have to be somewhere, and the agent will already have the Uber ready.
Anybody working on that stuff, I want to talk to. I think that's super interesting. I think we should, you know, VCs and stuff should be pouring money into that category, and they already are. But I do think, you know, you said earlier, like, this is something that hasn't been talked about as much. I do feel like it's still a little bit of a dark horse. Like, people don't quite know how fast this is going to happen, but it's going to steamroll the industry, I think, in like 6 months.
Yeah, I think the one thing to learn about crypto or know about crypto, it moves in cycles.
Yeah.
And even like categories move in cycles and based on like the hype and the FOMO. And I think like we're definitely seeing VCs pour into AI, but I think it's going to be the part where we finally see that product of AI really fully like fleshed out, that a VC is going to be like, okay, anything else we're not investing in. It's got to be anybody that's in the AI field right now that's got an innovative product that's going to help us.
You know, one thing I learned that the Solana Foundation team is doing really well, the DevRel team, that I didn't realize. But like, I vibe coded something yesterday. I literally made a demo of this 402 thing working on DevNet with an RPC node. So like, I wanted to pay for, you know, data from the DevNet, and I used Codex with OpenAI on the back end. And I was like, how does Codex know so much about Solana already? And what I didn't realize is, like, you know how you have SEO, search engine optimization? You kind of have the same thing for OpenAI and for all these LLMs that are like scraping the internet. So they've been doing like an excellent job making sure that all these AI tools are like fed how to build on Solana.
Yep.
I mean, this is where we're going. Like right now it's an okay junior engineer. In a year, it might be like expert level, you know, and you're going to need half the engineers on your team to build, you know, 10x level innovations and stuff. Maybe.
Yeah. I think there's education to us, but education to the agents itself. That is a two-way street, and I'm loving that, you know, it is being fed right. They're
doing an excellent job on this. I mean, it's a, and again, this is like, they're so strategic about that kind of thing. It's really smart, and I didn't know that they were doing it until like yesterday. And so I guess that's another thing that's really exciting about being here. Like, we have a remote world and a remote culture. My company is completely remote, but there is nothing that beats getting together as a community in person and talking to all the other builders and founders and like finding out what's going on. And really, I tell people all the time, like this conference and Breakpoint, it makes my entire business for the entire year. And then I show up here, we network, we connect with our customers, we find new customers, and we kind of set the direction for like the next 12 months of like where we need to focus and what we need to ship. And it doesn't happen any other way than this. You know, this is where all the tight relationships are built. And for me, I've been in the industry, you know, since 2016, going on a decade now. So I already have a ton of relationships. So it's easy for me to walk through the door and like have those conversations. But, you know, also for new entrants, it's a great thing to do is just to show up. I met this guy from Rhode Island yesterday. Sorry, but I can't remember your name, but like he's in the policy space. Like chief policy officer for Rhode Island's labor department, and super talented young guy, like in his 20s, elected official on the school board, super well spoken. Just walked up to a couple like OG founders from the space and started talking to us.
That's awesome.
And that's what's cool about these conferences. You can literally just walk up to anybody and ask questions. Yep. You know, as long as you're polite, you don't interrupt, and you kind of like have some tact, you can make all the connections you possibly need to slot into this industry. And we want that. We want you to come. We want you to be here and make those connections and network and show that kind of hustle. Like this kid demonstrated that he's super smart. He knows how to hustle. He has a very specific interest in policy and crypto. and I'm going to try and help him find a job or come full time into the space because of that, and I think that's a real opportunity for new people.
Yeah, and look, man, I think like progression is happening, right?
Yeah.
Like it's great to see. Like 5 years ago, if we were having this conversation, we'd probably laugh at each other and say they're probably like there to help us ban us or something.
Yeah,
They're
yeah.
probably like trying to find why we should be shut down. And now they're here and they're like, no, we need education.
Yeah.
We need to be educated. Why should we work with you? How do we work with you? And I've been saying this for a long time. I have a career in commercial investment banking, so like I come from the field of fake internet money. Don't touch that stuff. To now, I'm fully in this thing, and
Yeah.
I'm just like, wow. It was the miseducation, how I was fed about crypto, how the stigma is about crypto and this being a scam, blockchain. Like, blockchain isn't sexy, right? It's not. It's not something we want to market. We just want to be able to show you, and we're finally getting to that. And that's the progression that we're seeing, that roadmap finally like expanding and the runway expanding for all of us. Mentioning, a lot about policy. We mentioned Accelerate. We mentioned everything. Talk to us about the YouTube show you got going. You got 123,000 subscribers.
Yeah.
Man, like what kind of alpha are you giving there? Where should we follow you? Tell us about the show.
Yeah, so it's called the Index Podcast. You can find me on YouTube. You can find me on your favorite podcast event. You can find me on Twitter. My DMs are open, by the way. Like anybody can reach out to me. The show is about the future of the internet. My why for ABK Labs is just built together. I believe that open source software is the purest form of innovation and the greatest legacy I can leave to the world professionally. My why for the show is people are worth knowing. I believe that people are worth knowing, and it's a core part of who I am. Like I show up at like every coffee meeting that I take. I show up there, I learn about people, and it's created. Like a lot of people might look at that and be like, "Oh, you're wasting your time," but I'm like a networker, and this is how I've gotten every opportunity in my life. And for the show, it's really about networking for me. It's about creating valuable content for my guests and giving them leverage, right, with my audience. And so I believe in telling the stories that people build in the future of the internet. And the future of the internet is at the intersection of artificial intelligence and blockchains and crypto. And so everybody who comes on my show, that's what it's about. I really like to interview the founders. I always ask them, what's your why? Why do you get out of bed in the morning to do this job? And it's the whole Simon Sinek thing. Like I obviously didn't invent that, but I really latched on to that idea of having a really strong why, because this is hard. Like I've been doing the show since my first podcast at the beginning of the pandemic, and it was for a company called Orchid. Great team, love those guys. And when I left, they wanted to keep the show because it was super successful, and it was theirs, So I was like, oh man, I don't have the show. And I started the show because I was at every conference in the space until the world shut down.
Yep.
And so how am I going to network? And so I built that show from nothing to like a top 5% podcast in tech. And then I started the Index with the support of the Graph. Thanks, Tegan. We got a sponsor like right out of the gate and just started making good content and distributing it. And we grew that show. I think I might be like 4.5 years in. And up until about 6 months ago, I only had 5,000 subs, man. And we shipped one show a week, and we shipped clips every day. And I self-funded it through the last bear market because my sponsorships went away, and I had to keep it going. Probably put a lot of money into it. And then we just broke out, basically overnight. I found like the right strategic partnerships and lined up a good channel partner. And it literally went from like 5 to 120,000 like overnight. Now we're kind of here, we're kind of plateauing, but it's good, And I tell that story because it just takes persistence, like you never lose if you don't quit. You just keep going, keep shipping.
I think the hardest thing for anyone to create that wants to create is hitting the record button.
Yeah.
And just doing it. And then consistency.
Yep.
I run a show every single Monday through Friday, every single day. And I'll tell you, there are days that I wake up
100%.
and there are days that I cancel the show. That is just really tough, man.
Yeah.
Yeah,
you got to bring it. You got to bring the energy.
You got to bring
every
the
time.
energy, every time. I've done, today's my 3rd day doing shows. And
Yeah.
I've done close to
We're standing out here in the rain.
Yeah, it's like, yeah. I mean, it's crazy, but I wanted to do this, right? Because it captures New York City.
Yeah.
It captures why we're here, right?
Yeah.
Look, it's raining. It's chaotic. It's always chaotic. But guess what? We work in a chaotic field.
Yeah.
You never know what to expect.
Yep.
Tomorrow, China might ban Bitcoin. Another time.
For like the 30th time. If China bans Bitcoin, it's just a psyop. Don't worry about it.
That means they want to buy.
Yeah.
That's really cool. Index fund has taken off. Where do you see the next 6 months? What are you guys looking to focus on more on the education, the policy?
Yeah.
We are mentioning all these things. Is the vertical that you guys are looking to explore, AI, everything. But how do you want to bring it
two
together?
things. So I'm a huge, obviously, crypto advocate and Solana. I believe in Solana. I've been working with everybody here for again since like early 21. So I'm trying to drive adoption. You know, we have anybody on the show. We're not going to like block anybody who to come on the show. We never do pay to play with guests. We do have sponsors that help fund our work. And one of the things that's going to come out soon, and it's yet to be announced, but is we're going to start focusing on Bitcoin on Solana is going to be one thing, and AI. Okay. You know, on the Bitcoin on Solana front, I just think there's a lot of innovative utility to unlock with things like Zeus on mainnet that are going to give Bitcoin holders yield and other useful things they can do with Bitcoin on chain that they can't do on the Bitcoin network, but in a safe and secure way. Like, it has to be something, you know, Bitcoiners, they want to self-custody and not have to worry about, getting rugged, basically. And so I think, like, there's some really good solutions. Zeus Network is one of them coming. And so we're going to do a sub-segment of the show that's Bitcoin on Solana that is focused on just that, and talking to anybody who's building, like, applications that bring BTC to Solana mainnet. The other one is AI, and it's like I am constantly talking to builders that are building AI applications at the intersection of, you know, crypto and artificial intelligence. And then a big goal of my show for the next 6 months is to try to suck in more mainstream AI builders, you know, Web 2 AI companies that can use Solana. And this 402 thing that I was telling you guys about, I think is a perfect vehicle for that. It's a technology that needs to exist on mainnet that will enable these Web 2 AI companies to actually get the level of service that they need to make payments for AI bots or AI agents for whatever data they need. And initially, it's going to start out as just like Solana data for things like trading, but I think long term it'll be everything on the internet. And the TAM for Solana is just like kind of mind-boggling when you think about that. And so
you got my brain like right now, the juice is going, yes. And I'm like, I know we only have a half-hour show, and I'm like, you know, I have a million questions for you, but that is just wild.
Yeah, it's a huge vision. There's a bunch of builders on Solana that are focused on this now. We're building it open source so that everybody can use it, and I couldn't be more excited. But as far as the index goes, it's a tool for me to create distribution for the future of the internet. And it's a tool for me to connect with people because now I've got all these great PR firms that we partner with that just send us guests all the time. If I ever want to talk to somebody, I can just reach out to them and say, hey, you know, I'd like to get in such so-and-so CEO of whatever big company, and they'll do their best to get to them, and usually they can, or I can just by doing like direct outreach. And so for me, like, yeah, that's my focus. It's just like continue to build the network, continue to build the distribution channel, and just try to leverage that to do some good for the ecosystem. Yeah,
bro, I need to give you like the medals and the honor, man. I'm gonna be a big supporter. Love what you're saying. Definitely make sure you go hit the follow on YouTube, the Index Podcast. Make sure you hit the notification button. I don't care what you're doing. If you're having breakfast, dinner, if you're on a date, you stop what you're doing. If the show comes out, you watch it. If you're at a dinner place, a fancy dinner, whatever you're having, you put it on your phone and you watch it together during your dinner date. That's the way you're gonna bond. Look, man, Accelerate New York City, outside of Web3, what are you doing here in New York? Anything catch your eye? Are you going to go try some pizza? Are you going to go climb the Empire State Building? What are you doing now?
I'm a little obsessed about my fitness, so I don't miss my workouts. I've been going to jiu-jitsu every day at this place locally that I love. Yeah. Great group of guys. And, you know, making sure I get my workouts in outside of my roles. So I lift 3 days a week, and I do cardio the other 3 days, usually at like 4 a.m. And so I'm still getting after that. And then on that, man, I'm eating some nice steaks. I love steak.
Where'd you go? Anywhere good? Yeah.
I honestly, I went to Morton's, which is like a chain. Yeah. And then I went to some other place last night, and I can't remember the name of the place, but it was super good. So yeah, just like trying to get some time to enjoy the culture. But honestly, man, for Accelerate, I'm like grinding, meeting people, networking. So I'm like a little bit less. Hey, maybe you can make some recommendations for me for like Friday, you know, because I'll have a little more time Friday night. But
yeah, well, yeah. And if anybody invites you to dinner dates or they want to meet with you, you gotta ask for a restaurant first.
Yeah,
check the menu and then say yes or no. That's how it's gotta be. Yeah. If they have good steak, you're going.
Yes.
If they don't, tell them hey.
Steak. If you want to have dinner with me, steak is always a good choice. Steak is always a good choice.
Good steak. Don't take us anywhere cheap. We're not cheap.
Yeah, sorry.
Look, man, Alex, it's been awesome just chatting with you.
Yeah.
It's been awesome, like being able to get behind the camera and talk a little bit about what you're building. What's the last plugs? You mentioned the YouTube. Anything else? How do we follow you on X?
Yeah,
The company on X.
At AF Kehaya, Kehaya. DMs are open. If you're building something cool, send it to me. Send me your deck. Always better if you have a reference or something I know, because there's just a lot of people on the internet. So I'm much more likely to look at it if you know one of my friends. If you're out there building and just starting out, just keep shipping. Just keep shipping. Do something good for the world and community. Contribute. Find ways that you can add value. And if you're looking at making content, it's like you said, my first show that I ever did, it was the beginning of the pandemic. I had a hotspot in my Sprinter van. I had a pair of AirPods and my MacBook, and I had an interview with a former director of Homeland Security. This guy, Rich Terapoli, super interesting guy that I somehow landed through my friend. And yeah, I just recorded right there on terrible equipment. It barely recorded. I used Zoom. I had no idea what I was doing. But I just kept doing it and kept building. So I think you just gotta ship. That's like the Solana culture. And if you do that, you'll get respect. You'll fail a ton, but you'll work your way up and you'll start.
And look where you are now, right?
Yeah, exactly.
We're out here in New York City.
That's right.
We're right in the streets, in the rain, and capturing the true chaos of New York. Well, man, I appreciate it. We're gonna go back inside. We'll go get dried up.
Yeah.
Maybe have some steak for lunch today.
Let's do it. Let's do it.
Thanks for tuning in.
Thank you, guys.